Hey, Matt Richmond, welcome back. We're going to talk about some really fun things on your podcast today. How are you?
Pretty good, sir. Thank you for having me. How you doing?
I am fantastic. It is always good to be with you. I love your expertise around retirement planning, and one of the things I want to talk about today. This. I'm titling this episode "The Purpose of Retirement," and I'm convinced, Matt, that there's not one purpose. I think everybody has their own purpose of why are we trying to accumulate money over all of our working years to have this big nest egg. So what? I've got a nest egg. What am I going to be doing? So talk about, this concept of the purpose of retirement and how do you help people just kind of flesh this out through conversations and different things?
Absolutely. So it's funny that we kind of have this topic because that's one of the very first questions when we sit down with someone to our very first meeting, just to get to know them, hear a little bit more about them. I ask, what's the purpose of your money?
Mm,
Want it to do for you? Is it for living or dying? And sometimes people look at you kind of weird. What do you mean? Is it living or dying? Well, is it you just want to leave a legacy and that's really all it's for? Or do you want to use those funds, that IRA, that for whatever it is that you've saved up? Is it for living to use to create income or just growth? Or what is it? What is the purpose of your retirement? And
yeah.
so that's, again, one of the very first things we talk about when we have our first relationship meeting with them is just to learn a little bit more about them and ask that very question. And you nailed it with there's no like cookie cutter approach. There's no everybody's got the same purpose.
Yeah.
um, Everybody generally does have a different reasoning, or they could have similarities, but they are going to be slightly different. Where maybe this person wants some income, but they're big on legacy. This person is huge on legacy and has pensions, and they don't care about having more income. It's really an individual thing, and you can't cookie cutter approach that. And so
Right.
that's what we try to do when we have that relationship partnership meeting. That very first one is figuring out what's the purpose and what's your why. What's your why in retirement?
Yeah. That's a really good. Do you find as people like reach out to you, do they have they thought through that a lot, or is that kind of a new thing for most people? The why.
I think a lot of people, it catches them off guard. That I don't know if it's just the individuals I've met with, but um, I don't know that a lot of advisors are asking that. They're just telling them, oh, we can do this, we can grow your funds, we can do that. Where that's all great and fine and dandy, but we really want to know what's the why behind what you're doing. I
Mm-hmm.
also ask a lot of clients, well, every client, and then if we do educational seminars or anything like that, what's your biggest commodity? And I'll get a lot of different answers. I'll get
Mm-hmm.
my home, my 401, my 401k, my IRAs, the money I have saved up. And hey, those are all great answers. Your biggest commodity is time
Mm-hmm.
because that's something you can't get back.
Yeah.
Once that minute or that hour or that day is spent, it is gone forever.
Right.
And so you really ties back into the purpose. You really need to make sure you're focused on that purpose, that why in retirement.
Yeah. Well, and it's really interesting that that ties back into our last episode as well around long-term care because it's time, but it's health as well, right? Because if you
Right.
lose your health, you can have all the money you want in the world if you can't, take care of it. But time, I talked to somebody this past week and he's retired now, and he said I'm selfish with my time now because he was a fireman for 35 years. He's like, I spent a third of my life away from my family.
Right.
So I'm selfish now. I'm spending lots of time with my girls and my grandkids and I thought, well, that's exactly what you're saying. His purpose in retirement is to redeem those years and to build relationships. And he uses his money in his retirement to fund that, which exactly is what you help people do. And that's his purpose in retirement, right?
Right, exactly. That's 100% exactly what we help individuals do. And that gentleman that you just mentioned, I mean, he's got it right. Yeah, his why is his daughters, his granddaughters, his grandsons, and
Yeah.
again, being a fireman and being a civil servant, he gave up a lot of time away from and sacrificed a lot of time away from his family and friends to serve a greater good of the community. And now his why now in retirement is, hey, I'm going to get that back, all that time back, because you don't know that the next day is promised.
Well, you don't. And part of my background, my dad was a fireman, and he never ended up retiring because you never know, right? He was killed in a
Right.
motorcycle accident. I mean, one day he was riding the bike and loving life, and the next moment he was with Jesus. And you just don't know. Fortunately, they had retirement planned, and he had a pension from the fire department, so my mom was okay. But you're right. We never know. And I think in our culture anyway, we think, oh, I'm going to work, I'm going to live, and I'm making plans for 30 years down the road. But we don't know. And what you help people do is say, okay, if that's your plan, if you want to take one major trip every year to Europe or wherever, let's
Right.
plan that out. Let's make sure you have the money there. Let's make sure you have everything you need so that you can live out your purpose in retirement with no worries.
100%. Don't, and that's another thing we tell all of our clients is don't underlive your retirement. We find a lot of people do that because they don't have stuff set up that's safe and secure to make sure that that retirement is ironclad and they don't have to worry about anything.
Mhm.
When we can take that stress off of their shoulders and help them do that, it helps them live up their retirement and not have to worry about, oh, well, do I have the money for this or do I have the income for that? We take that stress away from them to ensure that they can enjoy all those things they want to do.
I love that. Underliving your retirement. I've never heard anybody use that phrase, but oh wow. I mean, think about the think about the regret at one level. If you get to the very end of your life and you're on your deathbed and you realize you could have done more in your retirement, and potentially the guilt in your children who are getting your inheritance who say, I wish you would have used this to take those trips, mom and dad. We don't need your money. Facilitating communication. And I think that's, man, I think that's one of the best uses of your book. Ironclad Retirement is for people to get it for themselves, but for them to get multiple copies and give to their kids and to say, we're working with Matt. Here's what we're doing. Here's why we're doing it. You need to understand what we are doing because it does impact you at some level somewhere down the road.
Right.
Right?
100%. And if legacy is important, which is great, if that's important to a family or a husband and wife or individual, that is fantastic. But let's do the most optimal way of leaving a legacy. There's
Mm-hmm.
different things you can do, different um insurances, like life insurance just hands down is going to be the cheapest way to leave a legacy. You can
Yeah.
get for pennies on the dollar. But what we found is a lot of people don't understand that. And so they're under living their retirement. And then because they're afraid that, hey, I got to leave money for the kids, or I'm going to lose this money, or I got to make sure it lasts forever when they don't have stuff safe and secure. Well, then guess what? When the kids get that money, they're like, well, mom or dad or both should have just spent that money and done what they
Yeah.
wanted to do. Because when the kids get it, most of the time they're going to get that country club membership. They're going to buy a boat. They're going to
Well,
take trips.
I want to do an episode down the road on that concept because the other thing you can do, and you know a lot more about this than us, but if you get an inheritance, then that could put you in a higher tax bracket, right? And then that could actually do more damage, more harm than good. And I would love just to pick your brain, talk about that because everybody talks about I'm just going to leave my kids millions of dollars. Well, there are rules and there are guardrails around some of that, and that might
Right.
not be the best. What's the best is to facilitate conversation with your kids. And I
Oh,
know
yeah.
Matt, you can help do this. So I'm gonna make a note, Matt, because I want to talk about that because I think there's a myth in there somewhere, and there are other ways to give money to kids during their lifetime that you don't have to wait till the end. So I think those are some really interesting topics that can really educate some people, facilitate some good conversations around topics that people just don't talk about. But I
Right.
know in your book, you do a great job of teeing all of this up, and you love just educating people and helping them have these conversations because it's so very important.
Oh, yeah. And it makes you feel good when somebody sends you a text message or leaves you a review or sends you an email just saying, thanks. I never thought I would be able to have a retirement like this, or I never thought I could retire. Last night, just in fact, we had a lady who works for a health insurance company, a major health insurance company, come into the office and really honestly thought she would never stop working until she said, I figured I was going to work till I was 80, 85. She was a single lady,
Wow.
had a little bit of retirement. When we kind of went over what we set up as we thought would be a very ironclad retirement plan for her to ensure she's got the guaranteed income. She never has to worry about running out of money. She's got some growth, some protection, liquidity, etc. She actually teared up. And so,
Mhm.
and with tears of almost joy, and said, like, I literally never thought this was possible. So you don't know how this makes me feel. And that's why we do this,
That's
is to
so
see
cool.
somebody that literally thought, I'm going to work until I die
Right.
because I'm by myself. I don't have the funds available
Mm-hmm.
to do this stuff. And then when we can come in and show them how we can make this work for them to get a very sustainable amount of income coming in that they're very comfortable with and make sure it never runs out. When somebody is moved to tears, that moves us, and that's a part of our why we do this.
Right. That's awesome. Giving her a good purpose in
Right.
retirement. I love that. Man, thank you. This is a great episode. I know it stirred a lot in me, and I think it's going to give people some things to think about. And one of the things you should think about is just reaching out to Matt. Ironclad Retirement is his book. You can go to ironcladretirement.com, and right there, front and center, you can request a free copy of Matt's book. Let me encourage you to just go do that. Start there. You'll be on his website. You can schedule a time to meet with him or talk with him, or just get the book and read it. And then when the time's ready, schedule a time, have these conversations, and let Matt be part of your planning and your purpose of retirement. Matt, thanks for another great episode of your podcast.
Thank you, Michael. Happy to be here.